Wimbledon men's final is right around the corner. In the semifinals, we had Sinner beating Djokovic in straight sets, kind of taking care of him. And then on the other side, we had Alcaraz over Taylor Fritz, the last American hopeful. Unfortunate to see him go down. I actually thought Taylor Fritz played like the best match I've ever seen him play. Like I thought he played great tennis. His serve was phenomenal. And at Wimbledon, especially on the grass, I think serving can be so important. And I thought he did that great. I thought he played, yeah, like I mean, even his ground strokes, he was hitting well. And then Carlos Alcaraz was Carlos Alcaraz. I mean, his movement was nuts. He was starting to getting to his serves later in the match. Fritz did take a set off of him, which again, like I said, I mean, Fritz played great tennis. I thought going into that match, Alcaraz was just going to dog walk him. And then, Fritz came back. And so that one was a great match. I caught like the whole thing. And I remember just sitting there watching, just in awe of Carlos Alcaraz. I think he's just on some type of a tear. And I think like in the past, like you catch him at some of the smaller tournaments and sometimes he'll have like an off match and you're like, whoa, who is this guy? Like he'll lose to some guy you would never expect him to lose to. But then dude, at these majors, he just shows up and he's just the guy. And he seems like so consistent, even though, you know, when you see him at some of these smaller tournaments, he doesn't seem like that. But at a major, man, he pulls it together. He's got that like fire in him, he's got everything. You look at him and you're just like, this is the guy that you want to bet on. He's the guy that you expect to win. And then on the other semis, where we had Sinner and Djokovic, I was watching Alex Sinner when he played Ben Shelton, thinking like, oh man, in the quarters, like I don't know if Sinner's gonna have it. Just like watching him right in the first set, and then he proceeded to walk all over Ben Shelton. I thought like he played a great match there. Looked so good. And then again against Djokovic. I mean, I think there was some talk about Djokovic with like a potential injury. I know he had fallen and taken like a little bit of a weird step, and I think he was. I think it was maybe his knee or his hip. I don't know. You never really know with these guys. They keep it like so tight. But there's clearly something off, and I thought that Djokovic didn't play up to his ability. And that's part of it. And then also when you're playing, you know, the number one seeded player in the tournament, Jannik Sinner, who's been on a tear. He's a great player. Minus the French Open final, he's looked unstoppable. Even there, he pretty much looked unstoppable for the first two sets. But nonetheless, I mean, I think Sinner looked great there. And so, I'll hold off on giving any of my final predictions. But, you have anything to add about the semis?
No, I a few things. So both of these guys have looked human in this tournament run. Not obviously they're still both here. It's a little bit the March Madness thing where you have all the upsets in the early rounds, and the 3 seed gets upset early, and the 9 Medvedev loses in the first round, and then we get to the finals, and it's the 1 and the 2 seed of the tournament, and it's like, okay, well, sometimes the people are seated there for a reason, and that's just how these tournaments go, even if they're full of upsets to start with. But they've both looked human at times. In round 4, Sinner was down 2 sets to Dimitrov, and he had to retire due to injury, which was honestly a heartbreaking moment. Just like as an athlete, I think I saw he'd had to retire from the last 5 Grand Slams, including Wimbledon, that he'd played. So just a pretty terrible string of luck, and I think it was all like different injuries. So you can't even really like predict. You can't be like, oh, I wish I just rehabbed my knee better. It's like, no, you just for the tennis gods were not going to let you play these Grand Slams, even though he was looking amazing against Sinner and had him on the ropes. Frankly, had won 2 sets in a row. And then, Alcaraz, I mean, I would have said he was probably the betting favorite going in, just given the grass surface and how great he's been at Wimbledon. To your point, he feels like he gets that level up at Grand Slams as opposed to some of the challenger events. And of course, just like talent wise, he's right up there with Sinner. But he hasn't had like a perfect run. He's dropped some sets here and there. And then talking about the semifinals, Taylor Fritz looked great against him. Fritz was playing an awesome game. And then I think it was the second set that Fritz took, and they were holding back and forth. And at one point it did just feel like Alcaraz was inevitable. And then it was like 4, I think Carlos was serving at 6-5, or he was 5. And so he was serving to hold to push to a tiebreak. and it was just like 4 quick points. I think one of them was a double fault, and Fritz had taken the set 7-5. And it's like, that's all you need. You just need them to look human for a little bit, and then the next set, Alcaraz looked back to his normal self, which what we would expect from him, going all around the court. And then we got to the tiebreak, and the tiebreak was awesome. And you know, sometimes it feels like Alcaraz just wants to play these set points because he likes the moment. I don't know.
Dude, yeah.
He just loves the moment. It was an awesome tiebreak, and Fritz was putting the pressure on him. I think he even had set point at one point. Like he had set point, and was serving for set point. Excuse me. And still, Alcaraz got the return back, won the point, and then ultimately won the set to move on. But all that said, these two guys were the 1 seed and the 2 seed by a pretty solid margin, just points wise. You know, expectations wise, they were solidly the 1 and the 2 that you'd expect. And we're in this era now of, you know, when both you and I were growing up, it was the big 3, big 4 era, where you'd expect one of these 4 guys to be the members of the semifinals and the members of the finals and the championship and the champion of that tournament, especially the Grand Slams. And then they all played for so long that kind of the next era is the one that we're living in now, which is the Sinner Alcaraz era. I do think we should probably come up with some better name than Sincaraz. It just doesn't roll off the tongue that well to talk about their rivalry. Like the Big 4 is just such a nice way to be able to talk about that era. But anyway, this is the era that we're in. It's like, these are the 2 guys, and there was periods where it's like, is Medvedev the next guy up? You know, all these guys that could have been the next guy up, and none of them just broke through in the same way. And honestly, Djokovic played spoiler there for a lot of those guys' tournaments when it felt like they were starting to go. Like Djokovic is still performing at the level that he is and stopping their runs. But yeah, we're in the Sinner Alcaraz era, and so far a lot of those matches have gone Alcaraz ways, like in their head to heads. And I couldn't be more excited for tomorrow's finals.
Yeah, no, seriously. I mean, it stinks. Part of me did want to see. I mean, Taylor Fritz would have been awesome to see in another major final, the U.S. Open last year. I mean, he's playing phenomenal tennis for, like, I don't know, as far as his standards go, I would say, and the American standard goes. I mean, he looks like the American guy and he has for a while now, and he still does. Like, that's our hopes ride on Taylor Fritz as an American. But yeah. I mean, they both look, yeah, like we were saying, phenomenal. What was I gonna? Oh, I was gonna mention that you were talking about how, you know, this is their era now. Like we had, right, obviously, like big 3, big 4, including Andy Murray, and then there was like this weird middle ground. I remember watching a lot of those major finals, and it just kept feeling like none of them had what it took. Like it would always be like a real weird 5-set match where, like, when it was like Zverev, Medvedev, gosh, there's one other guy I can't think of, but yeah, like a lot of those other guys that you don't really see in the finals now. And if it wasn't Djokovic, it'd be like, yeah, 2 of them for whatever reason. Like I think back on, gosh, what was that U.S. Open that Djokovic, like, you know, he threw his, he got disqualified from the tournament after throwing his racket. And I forget exactly who was in that final, but it was, you know, one of those guys, Zverev, a Medvedev, and yeah, it just felt like neither of them they didn't have that, you know, that grit, that want to win the tournament, and we were just waiting for like the next guys that had what it took to like win multiple majors and put together, you know, phenomenal resume, great pedigree, and it looks like we have those guys right now. It's Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner. I mean, even just so young, and they're so dominant.
Yeah, I mean, the youth is a huge piece of it. Like it is remarkable that Alcaraz is 22. I mean, I'm not saying anything groundbreaking with that, but his poise out there in the big moments is crazy. And the fact that it feels like he could have more levels to the game, like more mastery of the serve on all the surfaces, it's a scary thought. And it is. I think him and Sinner are a great like heir to the era that we are leaving. And I kind of think it, you know, I've heard some people who used to watch tennis when they're, you know, the Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, Murray era, and it was kind of, if you're not following a sport closely, what you kind of want is like an easy storyline and a star or a few stars to root for. Like you don't want to go into the depths of like who's facing each other in the round 4 matchups. Like you want to be like, okay, who's going to win this tournament? Is it Rafa or Federer? You know, like if you're just a casual fan. And tennis had that for such a long time, like really easy storylines that were really exciting, and of course, incredible players. And I think about that kind of with the NBA as well. It's like for so long, when we were growing up, it was obvious who the best players were, and they were huge personalities. Like you had Kobe, and then LeBron, and then Curry and KD, and you had all these things that were like obvious, exciting storylines for someone who isn't even that tapped into, like, they feel like they're, you know, included in the conversation. And there was that point, like you were talking about, those that it was a little bit of like a middle era when Federer and Nadal were coming to the close of their careers, and it was like, who's going to step up and take the mantle here? And I think that's when a lot of those kind of casual tennis fans lost interest, because the storylines were less obvious. And we're a little bit in that point with the NBA right now. Like the Oklahoma City Thunder just won. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was the MVP, one of the best, offensive seasons we've seen in a long time. But, you know, the dominant narrative about him was that he played boring basketball and the refs gave him a whistle. Like that was like the easy narrative. And so a lot of people that I talked to about the NBA this season were just like, yeah, kind of a sucky season. Like the refs gave OKC the win. And it's like, as a basketball fan, this was an incredible season. As a storyline, like basic level, maybe not the most exciting. And so I just think about some of those parallels, and I, you know, as a fan of just like wanting everyone to be competitive, just having two guys who are in every major finals isn't always the most exciting, because it's like, yeah, you can just like put those guys in pen at the top of your bracket, and that's probably what's going to happen. But as wanting the sport to grow and get people excited about it, like this is great for the sport. And also both of them are likable humans and great at tennis and play exciting tennis. So it's like, there's a lot of good there. And so not at all trying to say there's any cons to this scenario, just talking about it.
Sure. All right. I agree with everything you said. I want to change gears a little bit. We'll come back to Sinner Alcaraz. We'll talk a little bit more about their match coming up. Before we do that, it'd be, I feel like we got to talk about it a little bit. The women's final just happened. Yep. Iga Swiatek beat Anisimova. Bagel 6-0, 6-0.
Yeah.
Tough result for Anisimova. I thought she played an awesome tournament. I mean, it's one of those things, you hear it a lot where people are like, oh my gosh, they played such a great tournament. And they only say that because when the player was, not expected to get there. And I know that like people don't ever mean it like that. Actually, Iga Swiatek in her post-game interview, like after the match, she like mentioned that she was like, you had a great 2 weeks. Like this was a great 2 weeks at Wimbledon. And I mean, I think she won with like a lot of, respect. And there's only, there's only so much you can do when the other player doesn't get a game. I mean, that's unheard of. I haven't looked it up, but I don't know if that's ever happened before. Like 6-0, 6-0 for a final in a major is crazy.
I think I saw it. It has happened. I don't know. I think I saw that it has not happened in a men's tournament in a Grand Slam finals. I think the last time it happened in the women's was the 80s. So, I mean, we're talking a period of like 50 years here. So, effectively has barely happened at the least.
Right. And the whole match time, I think we were chatting a little bit earlier. I didn't catch the match. I was going to turn it on a little bit later in the morning, and 57 minutes start to finish. Total match time, less than an hour, in and out. Swiatek went to work and went home.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, it's tough to see the American hopes go to die that quickly. But it's hard to not fall back on the, hey, she had a great tournament. She beat the number one seed. And obviously that's really exciting. Sabalenka is the dominant force in women's tennis right now, and beating her is an accomplishment no matter how you want to spin it. But the thing you normally remember is the last match, and that was obviously 6-0, 6-0. And I didn't think Anisimova played terrible. Her opponent just played lights out, and sometimes that happens.
Yeah, against Sabalenka, I kept watching. I watched the highlights afterwards, like a lot of the points, and it felt like those shots that she was hitting against Sabalenka just weren't landing. Like she'd have these really good, crisp backhands that were winners against Sabalenka that were just falling a little bit wide or a little bit long against Swiatek. So I mean, yeah, a little bit unfortunate. It's one of those things that happens. I mean, especially when you're that type of player. Like, Amanda Anisimova is like a big hitter. She's got a
Sure.
huge backhand, really solid forehand. She just has really, really good ground strokes, really strong ground strokes, powerful ground strokes, I should say. And
Mhm.
those players, you see it all the time in these 5-set majors. They don't end up winning.
Mhm.
And I think it's just hard to put together that type of play style for so long.
Yeah.
It's the reason why the guys that do everything really well consistently are the ones that are, at the top, because in these 5-set matches, you can't just serve your way out of it most of the time. Sometimes you can, but like in general, to make it all the way through, and it's 128 players at the beginning
Mhm.
after qualifiers. Like, you have to win a whole bunch of matches. You got to play a ton of sets of tennis in these majors, and a lot of times, you can't be the serve guy for that long. Like, Taylor Fritz served phenomenally, but like, and that's when he was playing Alcaraz, that's what I just kept coming back to. I was like, I mean, yeah, if he can serve, if his first serve percentage is 80% or higher, like maybe he might win, but like that's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and
I think it
that's
kind
what
of
I think we saw. Mhm.
no,
Go ahead.
absolutely. I wanted to get your thoughts on this. There was a little bit of chatter. I think it was Jessica Pegula. Don't quote me exactly on that, but I think so. She had gotten upset earlier, and I believe she was a 3 seed, and she got
Mhm.
upset early in the tournament. And it was a press conference after, and she said, I don't remember exactly what her quote was, but the point of the conversation was, should women be playing 5-set matches because they're naturally a longer set, more time to adapt to the opponent, theoretically less upsets, just less volatility. Or conversely, should men be playing best of threes? Like, should we standardize those? And I was just kind of curious your thoughts on pros or cons. Not that we have any buying power here,
Yeah.
but wanted to get what your reactions were.
Yeah, we have big swing in the ATP.
Yeah.
But yeah, honestly, I see the arguments. I really do on both sides. I mean, 5-set matches, personally, as a fan, I love. I think
Mhm.
they're awesome. You just get that next level of like, it takes one more. Yeah, it takes more. I mean, it just objectively takes more. It takes more time, takes more games, takes more points. And then it also like, uh, yeah, like as a fan, it's easy to say that. Selfishly, if I was a player, I think I completely understand why they'd have a different argument to be made about like, well, I mean, the toll it takes on your body, all of that. I mean, we saw that with the NBA season, right? Like, they increased their games, and we
Mhm.
saw a lot more injuries. And there's like, now everyone's making the argument that like, are they playing too many games? And there's the other thing with the NBA where, you have to play a certain number of games to qualify for awards. And so like, are we pushing these guys? Are we almost enabling them to continue, to get injured because they're
Mhm.
having to play more? Or on the flip side of the coin, it's just like, well, statistically, like, if they're playing more games, there will objectively be more injuries. It's not that the more games are causing that. It's just like a result of, when you're playing more sport, there's more opportunity for an injury. And so that's what's happening. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think the way it's set up currently, to answer your question, I like the way it's set up currently. I think the women's game is exciting. I think I think a lot of people tuned in for a lot of the tournament. I think yeah, still maybe riding a little bit on the coattails of the likes of Serena Williams, a little bit on that. I think like, players like her really, drove a ton of fans into the game. And yeah, but I think like there's no problem with the women's game the way it is. I think 3 sets is plenty in general. I mean, maybe a 57-minute match, that's an outlier, but other than that, I think in general the women's game is they're long matches. On the contrary, like, you look at a men's match, a 5-set men's match, it can take 5-6 hours sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, it can take a crazy amount of time when you think about it. In the early stages of the tournament, they're playing every day, and then in
Mhm.
the round of 16 to the semis, when they're playing phenomenal tennis players, they have to play every other day. You get one day of rest. And it's not like this is, a lot of them. Djokovic, for instance, 38 years old, he's doing that and winning. Like, it's crazy, but I respect it. And I think like, if he's capable of doing it, there's no reason why we need to go down to 3 sets for the men. I think, yeah, I like where it's at.
Yep. No, all that makes sense. All that makes sense. I know you had mentioned real quickly that you had some specific predictions. Not to like go too hard on this because I don't think it's obviously like a perfect predictor, but I was curious what the betting odds were, given that Alcaraz's last few meetings with Sinner, he has won. Of course, across multiple surfaces. And we of course think about that French Open final, which was thrilling. So I was curious, maybe Alcaraz has this like big betting lead or whatever. And actually, it's perfectly even. They're both the same odds on money line. And again, that's really just like a placeholder for what do people think, what is like the average prediction. Definitely not a perfect predictor, but I was curious. So yeah, I mean, the Vegas would say it's dead even, and I'm curious what your take is.
Yeah, that's interesting. I did see, so immediately after the semifinals concluded, Alcaraz was favored. I think he was maybe like minus 140, minus 130, somewhere around there. I mean, it was slight, but he was favored for sure. And then over the last couple days, I guess it's come to
Sure.
where now maybe Sinner has a slight advantage, or it's even is sort of where we're at now, I guess, from a from the what they say, the betting markets say. But it is interesting, I guess. I mean, I don't know. Do they know something that we don't? Do they know something? I mean, surely they do. But do they have guys? This is just a general question for you. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. Do you think, like, someone like a DraftKings, do they have guys that they send, like employees that they send to these matches just to get like the overall general feel that you don't get from the scoreboards, you don't get from like ESPN, and they're just there, like mainly as spectators? Like, do you think that they employ people like that?
I love that question. You kind of think they've got to, right? These betting companies, for better or for worse, make so much money. They probably have enough money to have like someone on the books for a lot of this stuff. I mean, they gotta have some edge, and they gotta find the edge somewhere, and it can't just be perfectly like looking at the box score, because like you and I can do that kind of thing. We can watch the YouTube highlights same as anybody, so they kind of got to be ahead of it. So I wouldn't be surprised. I certainly don't know. It would be awesome if they had like an inside man, like hey, Sinner's elbow, he woke up today and it's like 80%. He's not feeling the best, and he had oatmeal today, and normally he has a banana. And it's that would be awesome. But we'll probably never know. We'll probably know stuff about the CIA before we'll know that about these betting companies, honestly.
Seriously. Yeah. As far as my thoughts, I think I've thought Alcaraz has looked like the better player. If you're asking me what I think is going to happen, I think I like Carlos in this match. It's funny that so everyone, I feel like you hear a lot about, people will say that Carlos's best surface is grass.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think a lot of that is due to his movement. He just is so quick, and the grass can be tough to move on sometimes. So he's got such an advantage because he moves around just so well. His mobility, his footwork around the court is phenomenal. I mean, Jannik Sinner is also a great mover. I mean, he's a big dude. I mean, well, he maybe weighs like $150, but he's like 6'3", 6'4". He's a big guy, and he gets around the court. I remember against the Djokovic match, the announcers kept mentioning how low he was getting. Like he gets so low, and he hits these forehands and these backhands, and like his knees. He has to get down so low, but he does. And I think that Sinner's best surface is grass. So I can kind of see why maybe the odds are more even now. But yeah, I understand why people, when the general consensus is that grass is Carlos's best surface. I think after watching his matches, especially, I think Fritz gave him what should have been a great challenge, and then it was, a 4-set pretty cool. The sets that Alcaraz won felt pretty comfortable. Even though Fritz was serving great, I think his game looks so good. It's the easy pick. I mean, he's won the last few. I think Carlos is going to win. That's my pick. I hope Jannik Sinner wins. From a rivalry standpoint, I think having Jannik win would help boost that rivalry, because Carlos has won the last few times they've met in big matches, like in major finals and stuff like that. It's gone Carlos's way. I mean, obviously, I think Jannik can win. I think it's like really neck and neck. But yeah, I'll take Carlos. My predicted final score is 7-6, 7-5, 6-4 going Alcaraz.
Love it. Yeah, no, I love it. I would love to have a counterpoint and get to share some alternate opinions, but I would also probably put my money behind Carlos. Just some quick like historical, when they play each other, how does it go? you mentioned a bunch of them, but Alcaraz has won. They played 12 times. Alcaraz has won 8 of them. So 8 of 12. I mean, against an opponent this good is honestly an unbelievable percentage. You know, when there was the big three, they all had there was like 50-50 between their head-to-heads. So 8-4 is pretty remarkable, even though it doesn't sound obviously like huge on paper. And in Grand Slams, to your point, Alcaraz has won 3 of those, and Sinner has only won 1 of them. And I think the one that Sinner won at a Grand Slam was back in 2002, I believe at Wimbledon.
2022.
So, yes, sorry, 2022. So it's been 3 years since Sinner has beaten Alcaraz at a Grand Slam, and also I believe since he's beaten him at Wimbledon, because Carlos has won the last few. So historically, it feels like the ship is behind Alcaraz right now, but there's also a reason that Sinner is the number 1 seed. And also just one extra storyline here that I have not heard anything about, but was a big deal at the start of the year, is the whole doping stuff with Sinner. That was like a big deal. He was out for 3 months because of doping. Do you remember? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh my gosh, yeah, and he was still performing so well during that time. I think so. When the whole scandal came out, he then won the Australian Open, and then was then he didn't, not confess isn't the right word, but he agreed to the suspension.
Yeah.
Not confess, but agreed to the suspension, and then I think he continued to win some big tournaments. I think he might have done pretty well at the French Open that year. Anyways, I don't want to speculate about what happened, but I remember him still doing very well during that time. He was performing great even amidst all of that. I can't imagine, that had to be so weird. You're just supposed to play tennis, but then you're going to go to a court hearing?
I know. It's a whole, it's just a, I think back to the baseball steroids era, and it was that is the defining thing of that part of baseball was the doping stuff. And Sinner is the number 1 player, arguably one of the faces of tennis, was in a doping scandal, and I just haven't heard anything about it. I don't even know if I've heard an announcer mention it this Wimbledon, and maybe they've been instructed to, and fair enough. I'm not going to say who should cast judgment on it in one way or another, but it's just an interesting, I think, additional piece here. I don't really have any great conclusions about it. I'm just it's an interesting extra factor.
It definitely is. It's just it just hasn't seemed to have affected him. Also, yeah, that was this year. It feels like it was a long time ago, but that was just this it happened relatively recently.
Yeah. And then he came out and played, to your point, great tennis at the French Open. So either he's back on those medications, or they didn't affect him much when he was on them. Legally, no, I have no conclusion as to what was happening with that. No.
Right. It is funny, man. I think you think about people doping in baseball a lot, right? There's just these huge men, and you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. You're like, Derek Jeter was juicing, Big Papi was juicing. You're like, oh yeah, no, that checks out. And you see this scrawny, flexible dude, and you're like, that guy, yeah, he's doping, all right.
It's not as obvious, yeah.
No, definitely not. If that's what was going on, definitely not as obvious. Cool, man. Well, you said your take is also you're taking Alcaraz tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll give Sinner a few. I'll give Sinner, let's say Alcaraz in 5. Let's do it. Let's really get the theater going. Cool. Have the full Wimbledon experience. We've had a lot of great Game 5s this tournament already, so I'll take Alcaraz in 5. But I'm at the point a little bit where whatever happens tomorrow, I don't know how surprised I'll be. That's how good these guys both are.
Yeah, thanks for chatting, and I'm excited for the match tomorrow. Sweet. See ya.